All right, let's talk about creating a CV that stands out. Now, a couple things here, since this came after the resume section of the course. So if you're just jumping right to this section, because you do CVs, that's great. We'll talk about CVs. There's some good parts earlier on in the resume section. We talk in more detail about some of these things. So it's good to review that. Or let's say you're American, for example, and you don't use CVs, you use resumes. You can just skip this whole section. Just go beyond the CV section and keep going with the course. You don't have to watch this section because this is specific to CVs. Also, there was a lesson earlier in the course too about what's the difference between a CV and a resume. Might be interesting if you want to watch it, but if you really don't use CVs, just skip on and move on. Okay, so now let's talk CVs though. So what to include in a CV? A CV, once again, will tend to be a little bit more standardized than a resume, which has some standardization to it from from just in use and practice, but it has a lot of flexibility, where a CV tends to be very, very standardized in the way it flows in the format, and people want it that way to make it easier to review, people as in the hiring managers or screeners. So what do you include in a CV? Well, obviously, first thing you have at the top is your contact information, and have all your contact information there as well too. Even things you might not think as much, but you certainly want a way that people can reach out to you by phone. I tend to recommend using your mobile phone, because you always have that with you, your cell phone, versus maybe certainly your current employer's office phone can get a little weird or whatever too. So you're always pick up the phone and you got a job, opportunity, and your boss is standing right there. Well, that can get weird. So have it be on your mobile phone so you're always accessible. Certainly want to include an email. You may not want to include, or I wouldn't recommend including your current employer's email. Go set up a Gmail account or some other, use a personal email account of some part. Gmail's free, Gmail works fine. Or other types of free emails that you have out there by a provider, maybe your cable provider might have that. So make sure at minimum you want to have your mobile number or phone number to the contact that way, and your email. I would also recommend having your LinkedIn profile there. Earlier in the course, we spent a great deal of time building this great LinkedIn profile. And so if you've done that, and you need to do that, it's important to do that. Put it on your resume, put it on your CV. Well, on your resume too, if you're doing a resume. You have that on there. Let people see it. That's a great way to tell your story and show off even more about you and your ability, and what you can bring. So I think certainly have your LinkedIn there. So those three I think are really the minimum. Though most people say you just have to have a cell phone or email. I think cell phone, email, LinkedIn is the standard now. If you happen to have a personal website, we have a whole lesson earlier about personal websites, and you're showing off your portfolio or whatever, include that too as well. Again, you want to give people every reason to learn more about you by clicking through something or finding more about you on LinkedIn or personal website. So that's basic contact, information. Then you have your professional title is, kind of like who you think you are, and you want your title to kind of match up with that job opening title. And then you can customize your CV for different job descriptions you might be applying to. So one might say senior software engineer, or some might say software engineer, or some might say engineer, or whatever it might say. You see how they're just slightly different. You want to have it kind of be the same as that job title. Helps for the machines for screening, helps when a human looks at it and they say, I'm hiring for a senior engineer. Oh, this person's a senior engineer. Okay, great. They match up. I know it's kind of the human mind, I guess, but just try to, if you're going to customize anything when you're applying to these different job descriptions, that's a great place to make some customization. And you can customize your CV, standardized format, but you can customize it, and you should, to these different job descriptions. Again, return on investment of your time, quality versus quantity. You might not, if you're applying to 100 places, you might not be able to do all this customization for everywhere, but the more you can do, the better your chances are of landing that next step, which is to take your CV and get you into a job interview. Professional summary really highlights some of your most important achievements and skills, particularly those skills, whether it's a soft skill like leadership or team building, or a hard skill like certain software packages like Microsoft Office, or an accounting software, or engineering software, or programming language, whatever it might be. Those are in there working in some of those skills. Both hard and soft skills can be very, very important. Again, for machines, applicant tracking systems to scan it, but also for the human eye as well. Then you have professional experience, and a lot of times in a resume it might be called work experience, but here you typically will call it professional experience. But it's no big deal. You could say work experience too. I don't think the world would end. You want it to be in reverse chronological order. That's the format that we're really looking for here in CVs. It works well for any type of document because people want to know what you're doing now, or even if you've just left a job or you were laid off, people want to know your most recent position and then go backwards. So reverse chronological order on that. And under each position you've held, put in those measurable results, put in things that you've accomplished, not that I led a team, but talk about I led a team on ABC project that resulted in being completed 30 days ahead of time and the extra bonus of a 20% increase in sales. I mean, obviously that's all made up. But you get the idea of where I'm putting in measurable numbers, and it's more than just led teams. That's okay, that's good. But the more you can say, well, what was the result of some of the things I've done? Was leadership or a hard skill like coding that you've done? What are some of the results that you've done, or maybe you've done as part of a team or as leading a team? So the more measurable results gives me more reason to look at your CV. Excuse me, being an American, I tend to default to resume. Apologize for that. The more you do that, then the more your CV will stand out. Skills relevant to the specific job that you're applying for, both soft and hard skills. We talked a little bit about that before, but certainly talking about that whole skill section is really where you can put all more instead of long paragraphs, you're being more specific bullet points, like particular software particular skills you have, bullet pointed out, so people can see that experience at a glance. You don't need to explain to them what Microsoft Office is or what Excel is. They know that. Just that that you've got experience using it, for example, might be very important to them. And then extra sections that you can have beyond this, those are the core components, but extra sections you can have might be personal projects or conference and courses that you've completed, publications. If you've got some publications, you can have a section on that. Volunteer experience, all these different things that you can kind of then add in these extra sections. First sections follow that order and really build that part out. But if you have some extra sections to just kind of, again, tell your story, put that in there, that's fine. Particularly, and really most importantly, that's relevant to who you're applying for. If you have some volunteer experience that's really not relevant at all, then don't include it. You can talk about it in an interview, or they don't even need to know about your volunteer experience. But maybe in your volunteer experience, you sit on a board of directors for a charitable organization, or you've had some fundraising results, some measurable results, or you've led some teams of volunteers. Those are things of other volunteers. So those are some skills that somebody could look at that section and say, oh, they've done this too, which is another proof to me that they have, some of these skills, particular soft skills that you might be doing from your volunteering. But it could be hard skills too. Maybe for a charitable organization, you designed and built their website for them from scratch for a small organization. What a great thing to put in there under volunteer experience. So these extra sections, think about what might be relevant to the person or the company that you're applying to and the person you might be talking to or screening you, and then build out your CV from that as well.